Hey there team, welcome back to the channel, welcome to my overview of new Arcane. So for those not across it, I do overviews on this channel to have a look at the first 2 hours of a game. That's the Steam refund window. Steam reckons you can make up your mind about whether you want to keep a game or not in that time. And broadly speaking, I would agree and say as a rule, 20 hours in, you're probably not going to change your mind about how you felt 2 hours in. So it's a short punchy video, broad strokes info. Keep it around 10 minutes and then you can make up your mind on your own. So, new Arcane, an upcoming CRPG going into early access. I've spent my 2 hours with it and I've loved it, actually. This has grabbed me, it's gripped me in such a way that it makes me realize I need to be getting back into CRPGs. I haven't really invested myself in one in a little while. At the moment, it probably won't be this one. I don't know about you guys. I'm happy to use my channel to shout out things and let you know. But generally speaking, with an early access game, I'll wait for 1.0. There's just so many games and so little time, and this will have its fair shake at 1.0. So it's not bad at all. In fact, it's very polished in many ways. There are some issues, but they're kind of small in the scheme of things. But the really big thing that carries the day is this world, the world building. It's really cool, man. And in a market, in a time gaming is flooded with lots of good games. I know everyone focuses on how bad the AAA game space can be, but if you step away from that and have a look at indie and AA, we are spoilt for choice. And while things like Baldur's Gate 3 doing Dungeons and Dragons and Rogue Trader doing 40k, they're all good and well. Obviously I'm not throwing any shade at them, but they stick within their specific lore, their worlds. This seems, as far as I understand, this is totally original, and it's really kind of grabbed me from a world building perspective. It actually makes me think of Encased. I might have to go back and reinstall that. You should check that out. That's a sort of sci-fi CRPG with a wonderful storyline there and world building. Anyway, so to focus on this one, it is sort of the clash of traditionalism versus progress, which is, something that comes up in all time anyway, so it's kind of evergreen as a cornerstone. But in this case, it's less the low-hanging fruit of things like, colonialism, stuff like that, and it's more about traditionalism in the form of magic, sorcery, more of a paganistic angle, versus industrialization. And it's really cool having these things butt up against each other. So you have this world where we have an airship in the prologue that's been crashed down, presumably by this dragon that's flying around in the sky, and that sort of really paints the picture quite well. So you can choose whether you want to be someone who's more of a magic user or more of a, steampunk gun-toting kind of dude. There's not a lot to give away with the story because it's still kind of a slow burn and there's lots of side quests and stuff like that, but it's very dense, it's very well realized. In the scheme of early access, as far as the foundations of what this game is as an interesting world that you just want to learn about, it's there. They have it understood. So I'd be curious how long it would be in early access. I might as well just quickly say the negatives I found were things like clicking on things is a bit fiddly. I mean, you can hold down Alt to highlight stuff, but I found myself in some situations, just trying to click on the thing that you want to click on became a bit of a headache. But I'm sure, look, that can be ironed out easily enough. Some of the pacing seems a bit laborious. Like there's a lot of voice acting and all the writing seems really good, but I just feel like, director's notes across the board to all of the voice actors is maybe pep it up a bit, go a bit faster. And I'm not necessarily of the modern Adderall-fueled low attention span generation, but it was wearing on me a little bit. There's a part where you can help a stage play and you sort of give them notes from the pit and you can direct it in different ways. And it kind of feels like a joke that goes on too long, right? A skit that outstays. And so just generally speaking, I think there is a difference between being methodical in your slower pace and meandering. So I think that could be tightened up, but what are they going to do then? Re-record all the voice acting that? I'm not sure. But again, also that could just be personal preference. In the scheme of things, it's not enough to wreck what's really quite wonderful here. Everything else works very, very well. The combat, what little I have played of it, because it does put you into a sort of hub area, so there's a lot of talking and questing, and the combat hasn't been super forthright. I've had a few little spats, but it's really cool. It's got a lot of the moving parts that you would expect from something like a Baldur's Gate, right? You're not moving around on a grid or anything like that. You've got action points, abilities, you can use stuns and basic attacks and choose your weapons. I'm sort of going in the fists direction because my dude's pretty heavy on strength. But as far as like what you would call standard fare or basic stuff that you would expect from CRPGs, it's all there. But it does distinguish itself in this world building. So the prologue is a sort of 3 months later scenario. It's a bit overwhelming, a bit confusing. You seem to be at the root cause of some sort of catastrophic event, and then you're put on a bit of a next generation Q trial with a judge dude sort of holding you to account for actions that you haven't done yet, because this is kind of it's kind of like the last act of the game as an intro. We've seen this stuff before in lots of media. It's a very clever way to sort of set the scene without just exposition dumping, actually. So then you jump in 3 months earlier, whatever you want to call it. You've essentially emigrated from the old world to the new world, and I don't have all the details around that, but from what I've picked up, it is a bit of a sort of frontiersman, welcome to the new world. Not quite gold rush, but that sort of American dream type movement of people going en masse by ship. And the whole place is just beautifully well realized. Kind of reminds me a little bit of BioShock Infinite. There's a lot of fanfare on the dockyards, and it's quite cool. Throw in some of the world events that are going on. There's a bit of a focus on automaton production and potentially workers' woes around that. Not necessarily rights, but there are newspaper clippings and talking to random people that seems to be a topic that's going to be handled. The idea that of people being supplanted by autonomous working. And there also seems to be some sort of disease, presumably technologically related, in this kind of steampunk revolution called the Iron Plague, I think it is, where people, essentially get infected by rust in their joints and stuff. I think that's what's going on. Again, these sort of games, it's going to be very rich and go for many, many hours, but already it's given me all this really interesting stuff. There seems to be elves and dwarves with humans. There are giants as well. A bit more in the Andre the Giant category as opposed to the 20-foot tall sort of. But yeah, so far I am sucked in, and I don't even want to bring it up, but I feel that in current year it is worth mentioning. This game does seem to be dealing with some interesting topics, and so far it's all very tastefully done. There doesn't seem to be any hints of modern shoehorning of maybe the author's opinion. It all seems to be pretty even-handed. Dare I say, like a well-realized world. Now look, I could eat my words on that. Who knows, it might pull a bait and switch 12 hours in. We've seen that happen with games before, usually more in the AAA space. But yeah, so far it's dealing with a multifaceted, interesting world with some really cool different components clashing and some sort of social issues that so far it seems to be just part of the world without beating you over the head with it. So yeah, pretty much the whole time I spent just loitering around in this humongous kind of port city front end. I've only really moved into the next biome, but it's all pretty wonderful and it feels alive, actually, more than most CRPGs. I don't know, I didn't really think too hard about it. But, a lot of people just foot trafficking around, the ambience, the soundtrack is an absolute banger of a couple of tracks on repeat. But there's also little bands playing and people yelling and screaming and talking and the hubbub of this busy kind of port. Just really well done. Very good production. And again, like I said, Baldur's Gate I would consider a bit of a blind spot because I probably only played it for like a dozen hours or something. But I did really enjoy the way they implemented a lot of sort of the dice rolling skill checks. They actually felt meaningful and impactful, and that's how it feels here as well. I know that might just be a bit of a vague platitude, but a lot of games that purport to give you choice don't really feel like it. It feels like what they're really doing is giving you a couple of different dialogue options because you're curious and then stay on the linear path as the writer chose. But so far it's good. I failed some skill checks and kind of screwed up some missions because my dude's pretty low IQ, fists heavy. Same thing, I've managed to solve a lot of problems with my fists, breaking over open luggage for people so they can get the dress out so that she can go to the stage play and all this sort of nonsense. Also, it's pretty big on like cutscenes and getting the camera down in there. Now, obviously it is on a lower budget. The graphics aren't going to really hold up super close scrutiny. Kind of reminds me of things like the XCOM games. Games that generally speaking are designed to be played up in that more isometric standover perspective. But it adds a lot. It adds a lot of heart and immersion to get these cutscenes going, even if they are a little bit janky and maybe the graphics aren't fantastic. It doesn't matter. And I'll just close on that thought. I am blown away mostly by the world building and realization. I want to explore this world. It's very wonderful. It's immersive in its styling and its direction, and just stands as a fantastic example that graphical fidelity is such a gaslighting of the AAA industry, and I hate it so much. All these pretty games with mid-gameplay, where this is the other way around. The gameplay is fun, the narrative components, the combat seems pretty cool as well, and the artistic direction is king. However, the graphics probably don't hold up to super close scrutiny. But I feel if you've made it this far and this is something that piques your interest, you're probably in the same boat as me and say, "Now that doesn't matter." Anyway, I don't want to waffle beyond that. Game's really cool. I can't wait to see where it goes into 1.0. Team might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.